So last month I got an email saying my VPS had used 90% of its allocated bandwidth. Bandwidth meaning the amount of data it can transfer to and from users in a month. This was strange, I'd never had an issue with bandwidth before. I'm not that popular. At the time I was in the middle of moving to a new apartment, so I wasn't able to look at this right away, and sure enough, by that afternoon I got another email saying my website was temporarily suspended for exceeding the bandwidth limit. That night, I had some time to look at Cloudflare, which my website uses for DNS and DDoS protection, and found some very strange things in my analytics. For the last 2 weeks or so, my traffic had been steadily increasing for seemingly no reason. Now, an obvious explanation is that I did release a new video recently, and perhaps that led to more visits to my site, but the timing doesn't quite work out. My video came out over a month earlier, and as you can see, its views don't really correlate to the traffic on the website. What was really suspicious was the fact that the vast majority of the traffic was coming from Singapore. Now, despite my K-pop good looks, I promise you I'm not 100,000 times more popular in Singapore than any other country, so I was starting to get the feeling I was being DDoSed. Now, on the one hand, I recognize that basically any public-facing website is at risk of DDoS. However, in theory, Cloudflare should have picked that up. It's basically Cloudflare's main job, and they're usually very good at it. So maybe it wasn't a DDoS unless it found a clever way to not look like one. But I wouldn't be able to know more without looking at the server's access log, which I could no longer do because the server was suspended until the end of the month. To get access to it sooner, my provider offered me a few options to pay them more money to increase my bandwidth limit. Cool, I love paying for someone else spamming my website. I was also a little concerned that since I still didn't even know what happened, I had no idea how much bandwidth I would need, or more specifically, how much would be eaten up before I even knew what this was, especially if the traffic just kept increasing as it had been. But I had no intention of leaving all my websites down for another 2 weeks, so I begrudgingly paid up and now everything was back and I could access my server. As expected, the traffic started ramping back up like nothing even happened, so I knew I'd better figure this out as soon as possible. Checking the access logs, there was indeed a lot of traffic, enough to rack up several gigabytes per hour. Now, a larger website would have had no trouble serving that, and technically mine didn't either. This wasn't actually a DDoS where the traffic saturated my site and prevented any legitimate traffic from getting through. It was just enough to eventually exceed my provider's arbitrary bandwidth limit. While these are all different IPs, they very much appear to be from one source. They're all from Singapore and they all have the same user agent. A user agent is what your browser sends to basically identify itself. Websites use these to best tailor themselves to what that browser is capable of. It's common for them to contain references to multiple browsers just in case that website doesn't recognize the actual browser being used. For example, a website can look at this Chrome user agent and know that it supports a certain amount of Safari and Mozilla features, even if it doesn't know what Chrome is. So what was the user agent from these requests? Well, this. Yeah, something that calls itself ByteSpider and claims to be operated by none other than ByteDance. If you don't know, ByteDance is best known as the developer of TikTok, and they've already had various controversies over some questionable business decisions. So what is ByteSpider? Well, ByteDance themselves don't seem to have made any mention of it anywhere in public, but from its name and its behavior, we can reasonably assume it's a spider bot. No, that isn't a bot that was bitten by a radioactive spider. Even though Byte is in the name, a spider bot, also known as a web crawler, is actually a pretty fundamental part of the internet as we know it. Their job is to literally just browse the internet all day. They record whatever pages they find, and that data is used to populate the search engines that we use every day. Just about every search engine has one, and if you want your website to show up in them, it's generally a good idea to let them do their thing. So is ByteDance working on a search engine? I guess it's possible. China could probably use some more of those since it blocks access to a lot of mainstream search engines like Google and DuckDuckGo, but they do have Bing. Bing. That being said, most web crawlers are intelligent enough to not flood your server with requests. Google's bot crawls my website too, but they've never generated enough traffic to even be noticeable. There's certainly a balance. I mean, for websites like Twitter or X, where politicians regularly make statements that become news headlines, you might want those tweets to show up in search results as soon as possible. But for a site like mine, you could probably get away with crawling it once every few days or even once every few weeks. ByteSpider doesn't seem to have figured that out yet. Now, I'm giving ByteDance the benefit of the doubt here that they're not being intentionally malicious, mostly because the traffic isn't necessarily suspicious. It's following links just like any standard web crawler would do, it's just being very enthusiastic about it all. That being said, there are a lot of other people who have had their own run-ins with ByteSpider, and one of them analyzed it and found things that aren't so reasonable. I haven't done these tests myself, so I can't confirm the results, but I can certainly believe them. And this blog post from another site claims this is fairly common behavior for a lot of Chinese web crawlers and recommends blocking them in your HTTP server. Indeed, this is what I did. I just redirected any client with ByteSpider's user agent to a 403 forbidden page, and like magic, my site usage plummeted back down. Crisis averted, so there's your solution if you needed one. Now, I should mention, user agents are very easy to spoof, so there is a chance that this is someone just pretending to be ByteDance, but I don't think that's super likely because, like I said, even though it's very annoying and maybe a little bit shady, I don't necessarily see this as intentionally malicious. If it was, why would they make it clear that all their traffic was coming from one place instead of just hiding behind regular Chrome or Firefox user agents? Anyway, I just thought this was interesting. I guess in some ways it's kind of a PSA, but mostly I just wanted to tell this story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll have that Lego Island Part 2 out soon.